The Galactic Compact had existed for 11,000 years. It was a union of 340 species from across the galaxy, all joined together for one reason: survival. Because out in the darkness between stars, there was something that hunted civilizations. The Dominion. No one knew where they came from. No one knew what they truly wanted. All anyone knew was that they moved from system to system, consuming everything in their path. They harvested entire populations for biological resources. They stripped planets down to their cores. They left nothing behind but empty rocks and silence. For 11,000 years, the Compact had fought them. For 11,000 years, the Compact had been losing. Ambassador of the sat in his office aboard Compact Station 7 and stared at the emergency transmission on his screen. His skin changed colors rapidly, cycling through shades of blue, and this was how his species showed fear. The third expansion fleet had arrived at the system, 900 warships, the largest force the Dominion had deployed in 2,000 years. The Compact was scrambling everything they had to respond. 212 vessels from 17 species were already on their way. Admiral of the Unity would command the defense. Everyone knew it would not be enough. Had been given a task, a simple task really. He was supposed to formally request military assistance from humanity. He almost laughed at the idea. Humanity, the species in the Compact. They had achieved faster-than-light travel only 43 standard years ago. In the grand scale of galactic civilization, they were infants, bobbies who had just learned to walk. There was a small blue planet called Earth, orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in an unremarkable part of the galaxy. Their entire fleet consisted of maybe a dozen patrol vessels and one larger ship that they refused to properly classify. They called it something strange, a dreadnought, whatever that meant. Compose the message anyway. It was protocol. Every Compact member must be given the opportunity to contribute to major defensive actions, even if that contribution was meaningless. He sent the formal request and expected to wait several days for a response. Humans were known to be slow with bureaucracy. The response came in less than 1 hour. Read it once, then again, then a third time. The message was short: one vessel en route to system, estimated arrival 14 hours, vessel designation THS consequence, Captain Sarah commanding. One vessel. Felt his chromatophores flush with deep purple. This was what his species used to express pity. The humans were sending their children to die alongside everyone else, and they could only spare one ship. He forwarded the response to Admiral with a brief note. Human contribution confirmed. One vessel. I recommend assigning them to rear guard duties where they can retreat safely when the battle turns. He did not expect the humans to survive. He did not expect any of them to survive. But perhaps the human ship could escape and carry word of what happened to the rest of the galaxy. Perhaps that was the most anyone could hope for now. Across the galaxy, in a room that would never see, Captain Sarah of the Terran hegemony ship Consequence reviewed the mission briefing. She was a small woman by human standards, with hair cut short and eyes that had seen more battles than most admirals in the Compact fleet. She smiled as she read the details. 900 warships, she said to her first officer. Harvester fleet configuration, heading for a populated system. Commander James nodded. He was a tall man with dark skin and a calm expression that never seemed to change, no matter how bad things got. Compact is sending 200 ships to defend. They're asking for our help. They're asking because protocol requires it, said. They don't expect anything from us. They think we're children. Are we going to show them otherwise? Stood up from her chair and walked to the window of her ready room. Outside, the Consequence hung in orbit above Earth. 4.7 kilometers of angular black metal. No curves, no elegant lines, just brutal functional design that had been refined through 300 years of human warfare. The compact species built their ships to be efficient, to be beautiful, to minimize energy signatures and maximize shield harmonics. Humans built their ships to do one thing: destroy anything that threatened them. "Signal the crew," said. "Battle stations, we jump in 6 hours." The compact gave us 14 hours to arrive. "I know, we'll be early." She turned back to face. "I want to see the look on their faces when we show up ahead of schedule." Allowed himself a small smile. "They won't know what hit them." "No," agreed, "they won't." Down in the depths of the consequence, 3,000 human crew members moved to their positions. Engineers ran final checks on the reactor systems. Weapons officers targeting solutions. Damage control teams prepared for the worst. In the missile bays, rows upon rows of nuclear warheads sat in their launch tubes. 2,400 of them, each one capable of destroying a small moon. Primitive by galactic standards. Chemical propellants. Fusion warheads. Technology that most species had abandoned thousands of years ago as too crude, too simple, too brutal. But humans had never abandoned it. They had spent 3 centuries making it better, faster, more accurate, more deadly. The compact thought humanity was young because they had only been in space for 43 years. They forgot that humanity had been killing things for 300,000 years before that. They forgot that humans had invented nuclear weapons and immediately pointed them at each other. They forgot that the same species that wrote poetry and painted beautiful art had also created weapons capable of ending all life on their planet. Humanity had not come to space looking for peace. Humanity had come to space looking for threats. And now they had found one. Captain returned to her command chair on the bridge of the consequence. Around her, the crew worked in focused silence. They knew what was coming. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. "Navigation," said. "Plot a jump to system. Arrival point, directly between the compact fleet and the formation." Her navigation officer looked up in surprise. "Captain, that will put us in the middle of the engagement zone." "I know," settled back in her chair. "That's exactly where I want to be." The consequence's engines hummed to life. Reality bent around the ship as it prepared to tear a hole in space and time. 14 hours away, Ambassador was still feeling pity for the humans. He would not feel that way for long. Fleet Admiral of the Unity had been fighting for 60 years. She had commanded ships in 12 major engagements. She had watched friends die. She had ordered thousands of soldiers to their deaths. She had done everything the compact asked of her, and she had never once complained. But standing on the bridge of her flagship, watching the fleet approach, she felt something she had not felt in decades. Despair. 900 warships. 900. The largest force in 2,000 years, and she had only 212 ships to stop them. Her tactical officers had run the simulations 100 times. The result was always the same. They would lose, they would all die, and then they would harvest the 4 billion people living in the system. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "the human vessel has arrived." Blinked already. They were not expected for another 6 hours. "They came early, Admiral." Well, at least the humans were eager to die. Appreciated that kind of dedication, even if it was pointless. "Put them on the tactical display," she ordered. The holographic map in front of her updated. A new icon appeared, marking the human ship's position. Looked at it. Then she looked again. "That cannot be correct," she said quietly. "Admiral." "Run the sensors again. Those readings must be wrong." Her sensor officer worked the controls. His hands were shaking. "I have 3 times, Admiral. The readings are accurate." The human ship hung in space at the edge of the system. It was massive. At 4.7 kilometers long, it dwarfed every other compact vessel present. Its own flagship was only 1.2 kilometers. The human ship was almost 4 times larger. But the size was not what made her twin hearts stop beating for a moment. It was the shape, the design, the energy readings. Compact vessels were elegant. They were designed by computer algorithms to maximize efficiency. Every curve served a purpose. Every angle was calculated to reduce energy signatures and improve shield harmonics. They were beautiful in their way, works of mathematical art. The human ship was not beautiful. It was a brutal slab of angular darkness, sharp edges, flat surfaces, no curves at all. It did not gleam in the starlight like other vessels. It seemed to absorb light, to swallow it. And the energy readings coming off it were impossible. "I am detecting weapons capacitors," her sensor officer said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Hundreds of them. The power output is, Admiral, that ship is running energy levels that match a small star." "That is impossible," said. "Their civilization has only been spacefaring for 43 years. 43 years in space," her tactical officer said slowly. "But they have had industrial civilization for 300 years. They have had nuclear weapons for almost that long. And Admiral, they have been fighting each other that entire time." Stared at the readings. The human ship's hull was made of materials her sensors could not identify. Layers upon layers of metals and composites arranged in patterns that suggested centuries of development, centuries of refinement, centuries of learning how to build things that could survive the worst punishment imaginable. The compact had spent 11,000 years fighting the. Humanity had spent 300 years fighting itself. And they had gotten very, very good at it. A transmission came through from the human vessel. The voice was calm, professional, almost casual. "Compact Fleet, this is THS Consequence. Captain Sarah commanding. We have arrived to assist with defensive operations. Where do you need us?" Found her voice. "Consequence, this is Fleet Admiral. We are grateful for your assistance. Please take position at the rear of our formation. We will need reserves when the main engagement begins." There was a pause, then the human captain spoke again. "Negative, Admiral. We did not come here to watch from the back. Transmitting tactical proposal now." A new file appeared on console. She opened it. The proposal was insane. The humans wanted to position their single ship directly in front of the entire compact formation. They wanted to be the first thing they encountered. They wanted to take the initial assault from 900 enemy warships by themselves. "Captain," said carefully, "I appreciate your courage, but this proposal is suicide. Your vessel, however impressive, cannot withstand an assault from the entire fleet." "Admiral, with respect, you don't know what this vessel can withstand." His voice was still calm, still casual. "I'm not asking for permission. I'm informing you of our intentions. You can either support us or stay out of our way." Chromatophores would have flushed with anger if she had any. The arrogance, the sheer human arrogance. But then she looked at those energy readings again. She looked at the size of that impossible ship. She thought about how humanity had spent 3 centuries developing weapons to use against each other. What if they were not arrogant? What if they simply knew something she did not? "Very well, Captain," said slowly. "Take your position. We will provide support as needed." "Appreciated, Admiral. Consequence, moving to forward position now." The human ship began to move. It accelerated faster than anything that size should be able to accelerate. Within minutes, it had positioned itself between the compact fleet and the approaching armada. One ship against 900. Watched it happen and felt something strange, something she had not felt in 60 years of war. Hope. Across the system, the fleet continued its approach. They had detected the new arrival. They had analyzed its size and configuration. Their commander, fleet commander, reviewed the data with his tactical staff. "One large vessel has joined the enemy formation," his officer reported. "Unknown classification. significant reactor output. One ship, the mandibles clicked with amusement. One ship against 900, is this meant to frighten us? Unknown, Commander. Studied the readings. The vessel was large, yes. Its energy output was impressive, but it was still just one ship. The mathematics were simple. 1 against 900 was not a battle, it was extermination. Target the large vessel first, he ordered. Destroy it immediately. Make an example for the rest of the enemy fleet. Understood, Commander. 47 destroyers broke formation and accelerated toward the human ship. They were fast. They were deadly. They had destroyed hundreds of compact vessels in their service lives. They had never faced anything like the consequence. On the bridge of the human ship, Captain watched the approaching destroyers with calm eyes. Around her, her crew worked in focused silence. No panic, no fear, just professional dedication. 47 contacts approaching, her tactical officer reported. Destroyer class, weapons hot. I see them, said. She turned to her weapons officer. Lieutenant Park, how many missiles do we have loaded? Full complement, Captain. 2,400 ready to launch. Smiled, it was not a friendly smile. Let's introduce ourselves. The 47 destroyers raced toward the human ship at full speed. Their weapons were charged. Their targeting systems were locked. Their crews were ready for an easy kill. They expected the human vessel to run, or to raise shields, or to call for help from the compact fleet behind it. The consequence did none of these things. Instead, it opened. Panels along the ship's hull began to slide apart. Row after row of launch tubes appeared, hundreds of them, arranged in neat lines across the vessel's surface. The destroyers detected this change and slowed their approach, suddenly uncertain. Fleet Commander watched from his command ship at the center of the formation. His mandibles stopped clicking. His compound eyes focused on the tactical display. "What is that vessel doing?" he demanded. His tactical officer studied the readings. "Unknown, Commander, it appears to be opening weapons ports." "Weapons ports, how many?" The officer went silent. Then very quietly he said, "All of them, Commander." Had approximately 4 seconds to understand what was happening. The energy readings his sensors had detected earlier were not reactor output. They were ordnance. The consequence fired. 2,400 missiles launched in a single coordinated salvo. They were not elegant weapons. They were not the precise, shield-penetrating torpedoes that the compact used. They were crude by galactic standards, simple chemical propellants pushing warheads through space. But those warheads were fusion bombs. Each one carried enough destructive power to crack a small moon, and there were 2,400 of them. The point defense systems tried to respond. They shot down dozens of missiles, hundreds even, but there were too many. They came too fast. They came from too many directions. The 47 destroyers ceased to exist. The explosion was so bright that it temporarily blinded every sensor in the system. For 3 full seconds, nothing could see anything. There was only light, pure, terrible nuclear light. When the sensors recovered, there was nothing left but expanding clouds of debris where the destroyers had been. Admiral stared at her tactical display. Her crew was silent. No one spoke. No one moved. No one even breathed. 47 warships, gone, destroyed in a single moment by a single vessel. "That is not possible," her tactical officer whispered. But it had happened. They had all watched it happen. On the command ship, Fleet Commander experienced something his species rarely felt: shock. He looked at the empty space where his destroyers had been. He looked at the single human vessel that had killed them all. "Fire," he ordered, his voice cracked. "All ships, fire everything, destroy that vessel now." The fleet responded. 853 remaining warships opened fire on the consequence. Beam weapons, plasma torpedoes, kinetic projectiles, everything they had. The human ship began to move. It did not retreat. It did not evade. It did not try to escape the incoming fire. It charged. The consequence accelerated directly toward the formation. Its hull glowed as enemy weapons struck it. Its armor plates absorbed hits that would have destroyed any compact vessel. It kept coming. And then it fired again. This time, it was not just missiles. The ship's entire surface came alive with weapons fire. Thousands of small turrets opened up, creating a sphere of destruction around the vessel. Fighters dissolved. Strike craft evaporated. Anything that came within 10 kilometers of the human ship was shredded into fragments. And the missiles kept coming. Wave after wave of nuclear fire, pouring out of the consequence like a river of death. Captain stood on her bridge, watching the battle unfold on her displays. Her ship shook as enemy fire struck the hull. Warning lights flashed. Damage reports came in from across the vessel. She did not look concerned. "Damage status," she called out. "Outer armor layers 3 through 7 are compromised on the port side," her damage control officer reported. "Missile tubes 47 through 62 are offline. We have minor hull breaches in section C through F, no casualties." "Acceptable, continue firing." The consequence plunged into the heart of the formation. It was like watching a shark enter a school of fish. The ships tried to scatter, tried to concentrate fire, tried to find some way to stop this monster that had appeared among them. Nothing worked. A battle cruiser, one of their largest ships, turned to ram the consequence. It was a desperate move, a suicide attack meant to stop the human vessel through sheer mass. The consequence responded with its main weapon. The spinal. It was a simple concept. A metal slug, 5 tons of solid tungsten, accelerated to a fraction of the speed of light. The projectile crossed the distance between the ships in less than a heartbeat. It struck the battle cruiser dead center. It did not stop. The slug punched through the battle cruiser like a needle through paper. It continued on. It struck a second vessel behind the first. It kept going. It struck a third. 3 ships killed with a single shot. Commander watched his fleet die around him. He had never seen anything like this. In all his years of service, he had never encountered a species that fought like this, with such brutality, such overwhelming force, such complete disregard for elegant warfare. The humans did not fight to win. They fought to annihilate. "All ships retreat," ordered. His voice was hollow, empty. "Full retreat now." They began to run. The consequence followed. Captain watched the enemy fleet scatter on her display. She could have let them go. She could have declared victory and allowed the survivors to escape. She did not. "Navigation, pursuit course," she ordered. "Weapons, continue firing. I want every ship that came here to know exactly what happens when you threaten a compact system." Her communications officer looked up. "Captain, should we broadcast a message? Demand surrender." Considered it, then she shook her head. "No, they came to harvest 4 billion people. They don't get to surrender." The consequence accelerated after the fleeing fleet. Behind it, the compact vessels watched in stunned silence. They had come here expecting to die. They had come here expecting to lose like they always lost. Instead, they watched a single human ship tear apart the largest force in 2,000 years. Admiral finally found her voice. "All ships," she said quietly, "support the consequence. Pursue and destroy any vessel that tries to escape." The compact fleet moved to obey. But by the time they reached effective weapons range, there was almost nothing left for them to do. The humans had already done it. Admiral would remember the next 47 minutes for the rest of her life. She would dream about it. She would wake up in the middle of the night remembering what she had seen, not with fear, not with horror, with awe. The consequence moved through the fleet like nothing she had ever witnessed. It did not fight like a compact vessel. Compact ships maintained distance. They sought optimal firing solutions. They preserved ammunition for strategic targets. They fought with elegance and precision. The human ship fought like a wild animal. It charged directly into enemy formations. It absorbed punishment that would have destroyed a dozen compact vessels. Its weapons fired continuously, creating walls of nuclear fire that consumed everything in their path. "Admiral," her sensor officer said, his voice shaking, "the human vessel has destroyed 127 enemy ships in the last 15 minutes. 127, repeated. That is impossible. I am watching it happen, Admiral. She was watching it too, but her mind could not accept what her eyes were seeing. The fleet was in complete disarray. Ships fled in every direction, abandoning formation, abandoning each other. The carefully organized armada that had entered the system had become a panicked mob of individual vessels, each one trying desperately to escape. The consequence pursued them all. Captain stood on her bridge, watching the destruction unfold. Her ship had taken significant damage now. Armor plates were missing. Several weapons systems were offline. One of her engine pods was running at reduced capacity. She did not care. "Tactical status on the enemy fleet," she ordered. "Approximately 500 vessels remaining, Captain. They are attempting to reach minimum safe distance for FTL jump. How many can we intercept before they escape?" "At current engagement rate, 400, maybe 450. "Nodded, then let's get to work." The Consequence adjusted its course, angling to cut off the largest group of fleeing ships. It's fired again and again, each shot destroying or crippling an enemy vessel. Its missile tubes had long since emptied, but the ship carried more than just nuclear weapons. The kinetic turrets never stopped firing. Thousands of small projectiles filled space around the human ship, creating a zone of death that nothing could survive. Fighters flew into the barrage and disappeared. Strike craft tried to attack and were shredded. Even the debris from destroyed ships was broken apart, reduced to dust by the constant stream of fire. Commander had managed to reach the edge of the battle. His command ship was damaged but still functional. He was going to survive. He was going to escape. He was going to bring word of this disaster back to the Dominion. Then the human ship appeared on his sensors. It had crossed the entire battlefield in minutes. It had destroyed hundreds of vessels on the way, and now it was heading directly for him. "All power to engines," ordered. "Maximum speed, get us out of here." "Commander, the human vessel is faster than us." Mandibles clicked together, not in amusement this time, in terror. "Then all power to weapons. If we are going to die, we will die fighting." His ship turned to face the approaching human vessel, its weapons charged, its crew prepared for their final battle. The Consequence did not slow down. Captain studied the enemy command ship on her display. It was one of the larger vessels, heavily armored, bristling with weapons. It was making a stand, admirable in a way. "That's their fleet commander," her tactical officer said. "If we destroy that ship, the rest of the fleet loses coordination." "I know," said. "That's why we're going to destroy it. All forward weapons target the command vessel. Fire when ready." The Consequence opened up with everything it had. Watched the incoming fire on his tactical display. Slugs, plasma charges, kinetic projectiles, more firepower than his ship could possibly survive. In his final moments, he understood something important. He understood why they had never encountered humans before. He understood why this small species from an unremarkable star system had been able to build such a terrifying vessel. Humans were not like other species. Other species reached space and found wonder. They found curiosity. They found the desire to explore and discover. Humans reached space and found threats. They looked at the infinite darkness between stars and saw danger lurking in every shadow. They looked at the universe and asked themselves, what is out there that might try to kill us? And then they prepared for it. For 300 years they had prepared. While other species built beautiful ships designed for exploration and trade, humans had built weapons. While other species developed elegant technologies, humans had refined the art of destruction. While other species forgot what it meant to truly fight, humans had never stopped fighting. They had made a terrible mistake. They had picked a fight with a species that did nothing but fight. Ship exploded. He had just enough time to transmit a final message to the fleeing remnants of his fleet. Avoid the human, avoid them at all costs. They are. The transmission cut off. The battle was over. Of the 900 warships that had entered the system, 73 escaped. The rest were debris, scattered across millions of kilometers of space. The consequence hung in the void, damaged but victorious. Its hull was, its armor was torn. 16 of its missile tubes would need to be replaced. Captain looked at the damage reports and nodded. Within acceptable parameters, she said quietly. Her communications officer looked up. Captain, Admiral is requesting to speak with you. Put her through. Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. The alien looked stunned. Her 4 eyes blinked repeatedly, and her skin cycled through colors that could not interpret. Captain said slowly, I do not know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Admiral. We came to help. We helped. You destroyed over 800 warships, by yourself, in less than 1 hour. 47 minutes, corrected. We try to be efficient. Was silent for a long moment. Then she asked the question that had been forming in her mind since the battle began. How many ships like this do you have? Smiled, it was a thin smile, a dangerous smile. The consequence is what we send when we're being polite, Admiral. We have 47 more in the home fleet, and those are just the ones we've told you about. Felt her twin hearts skip a beat. Your saying this was your diplomatic response. We want to be friends, Admiral. We want peace. But we spent a very long time making sure that if anyone tried to take that away from us, we would be ready. Smile faded. Her eyes grew cold. They came here to harvest 4 billion people. They learned what happens when they threaten systems under our protection. I hope the lesson sticks. Looked at the human captain. She looked at the impossible ship floating in space. She thought about everything she had witnessed in the last hour. For the first time in 60 years, she believed the war might actually be won. What do you propose to do now, Captain? Leaned back in her chair. Now we go home and repair. Then we come back with reinforcements. Reinforcements. Admiral, the Dominion has 17 more expansion fleets. This was just one of them. His voice was calm, almost casual. I think it's time we introduce them to the rest of our family. 3 days after the battle of Ambassador of the stood in the docking bay of Compact Station 7 and waited for the human shuttle to arrive. His skin was cycling through colors he could not control. Confusion, fear, wonder. They mixed together until he was almost glowing. The shuttle landed softly on the deck. Its doors opened and Captain Sarah stepped out. She was smaller than had expected, shorter than most humans he had seen in images. Her hair was cut close to her head. Her uniform was simple and practical. She looked like someone's grandmother. She had just destroyed 800 warships in less than an hour. Ambassador said, extending her hand, "Thank you for arranging this meeting." Took her hand carefully. Human greeting customs still confused him, but he had learned the basics. "Thank you for coming, Captain, and thank you for what you did at." "We came to help," said simply. "We helped." She said it like it was nothing. Like destroying the largest fleet in 2,000 years was just another day at the office. Led her to a private conference room. He had many questions, many things he needed to understand. He did not know where to begin. Sat down across from him and waited, patient, calm, like she had all the time in the universe. "Captain," finally said, "I must confess something. When I received word that humanity would send one ship to, I felt pity. I thought you were sending your children to die alongside us." Smiled slightly. "I know." "You knew." "Every species thinks that about us at first." She folded her hands on the table. "We are young, 43 years in space. By galactic standards, we are infants. We should not be able to build ships like the Consequence. We should not be able to fight like we do." "Then how?" asked. "How is this possible? I have reviewed the data from the battle. Your weapons, your tactics, your ship design, everything is unlike anything we have seen. Your technology is crude by our standards but devastatingly effective. How did you develop such things in only 43 years?" Leaned back in her chair, her smile faded. "Ambassador, I am going to tell you something about humanity, something that might help you understand." Nodded, his chromatophores shifted to a deep blue, indicating focused attention. "Humans have been asking one question since we first picked up a rock and realized it could break a skull," said. "That question is, how do we kill something bigger than us?" She let that statement hang in the air for a moment. "We are not the strongest species on our planet. We are not the fastest. We do not have claws or fangs or armor, but we survived anyway. We survived because we learned to make tools, to make weapons, to work together against threats that should have destroyed us." She gestured around the room. "This ship you saw it is the result of 300 years of development. 300 years of asking that same question. How do we kill something bigger than us?" "But you were not fighting other species," said. "You had only been in space for 43 years. You could not have known about any external threat." His expression grew dark. "No, Ambassador, we were not fighting other species, we were fighting each other." Felt his skin flush with confusion. "Each other, I do not understand." "For 300 years humanity has had nuclear weapons, bombs capable of destroying entire cities, and from the moment we invented them we pointed them at each other." His voice was quiet, heavy. "We split our planet into factions. We built thousands of these weapons. We came within minutes of destroying ourselves several times." "That is horrifying," said. "Yes, it is," nodded slowly. "But it also meant that when we finally reached space, we did not come looking for wonder. We came looking for threats. We looked at the infinite darkness between stars and we asked ourselves, what is out there that might try to kill us?" She met his eyes directly. "And then we prepared for it." Was silent for a long moment, processing this information. He thought about his own species. They had reached space 4,000 years ago. They had come seeking knowledge, seeking connection, seeking understanding. Humanity had reached space seeking enemies. "The Consequence," continued, "is what we send when we want to be diplomatic, when we want to show good faith, when we want to demonstrate that we can help without being threatening." "Without being threatening," repeated weakly. "You destroyed 800 warships." "And we could have sent more ships. We could have destroyed all 900. We held back because we want to be seen as allies, not conquerors." Leaned forward. "Ambassador, humanity has 48 dreadnought-class vessels like the Consequence. We have 200 cruisers. We have 1,000 smaller combat ships, and that is just what we admit to publicly." Felt something cold settle into his digestive tract. "You are saying the Consequence was not your full strength." "The Consequence was a fraction of our strength, a tiny fraction." Stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the stars stretched into infinity. "Humanity joined the Galactic Compact because we want friends. We want trade. We want peace. We spent so long fighting each other that we are desperate for something else, something better." She turned back to face him. "But we also spent so long fighting that we became very, very good at it. And we made a promise to ourselves. We would never be helpless again. We would never be victims. We would never let something bigger than us threaten our survival. She returned to her seat. They have hunted your compact for 11,000 years. They have treated your species like prey, like cattle to be harvested. Her voice was cold now, hard. That ends now. What do you propose? Asked quietly. The Dominion has 17 expansion fleets. We have identified the locations of 14 of them. We propose a coordinated strike against all 14 simultaneously. Pulled out a data tablet and placed it on the table. 12 of our dreadnoughts, supported by compact vessels for logistics and cleanup operations. Looked at the tactical plans on the tablet. His skin went pale. You want to attack 14 fleets at once. That would be the largest military operation in the history of the compact. It would end the war, said simply. Not in 11,000 years, not in 100, it would end the war now. Studied the plans. They were detailed, precise. They had clearly been developed long before the battle of humanity had been preparing for this. How long, he asked, how long have you been planning this? Smiled thinly. Since we first detected signals 40 years ago, before we even joined the compact. We analyzed their technology, we studied their tactics, we identified their weaknesses, and we built weapons specifically designed to exploit those weaknesses. You have been preparing to fight them for 40 years. Ambassador, we have been preparing to fight something since we first invented fire. They are just the latest threat. They won't be the last. Sat back in his chair. He looked at this small human woman with her hair and her calm eyes. He thought about the horror she had unleashed at. He thought about the 47 other ships just like hers. He thought about what it meant to share a galaxy with a species like humanity. It was terrifying. It was also the first real hope his species had felt in 11,000 years. I will present your proposal to the Compact Council, said finally. I believe they will accept. I thought they might. Stood up and extended her hand again. We look forward to working with you, Ambassador. Took her hand. Captain, may I ask one more question? Of course. What do you call it when you use far more force than necessary to defeat an enemy? Smiled. It was not a warm smile. We call it overkill, Ambassador, and we consider it a virtue. 6 months later, the Dominion formally surrendered to a coalition force led by 12 human vessels. The war had lasted 11,000 years under compact leadership. Humanity ended it in one. When asked how they intended to ensure the peace, Earth's representative to the Galactic Compact offered a simple statement that would become humanity's unofficial motto among the stars. We came in peace. We would prefer to leave that way, but we brought enough firepower to have options. The never threatened anyone again. And across the galaxy, species that had never heard of humanity began to learn a simple truth. The universe was vast and dangerous and full of threats. But now humanity was out there too. And they were not prey. They never had been.